The great chamber fell silent when Ambassador Vel stepped forward. His blue skin had turned pale, and his four hands trembled as he held the data tablet. Around him, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated seats, waiting for news they already knew would be terrible. "The Keth Dominion has mobilized," Vel said. His voice echoed through the massive room. 3,000 warships. "They crossed the border this morning?" Gasps and frightened whispers filled the chamber. High Counselor Bren, an elderly creature with silver scales and tired eyes, raised his hand for silence. He had led the Galactic Council for 60 cycles, and in all that time, he had never faced a threat like this. "How long before they reach the inner systems?" Bren asked. 12 rotations, Vel replied. "Maybe less. They are not stopping. They are not negotiating. They are coming to conquer." Defense Commander Orith stood up from his seat. He was a massive being, built for war, with thick armor plates covering his body. But even he looked worried. "Our combined fleet number's 1,400 vessels," he said. "We cannot win a direct battle. The math is simple. We will lose." The chamber erupted in chaos. Species that had been enemies for centuries now shared the same fear. Some called for immediate surrender. Others demanded they fight to the last ship. A few simply sat in silence, accepting their fate. In the back of the chamber, a young female aide named Yuna watched everything unfold. She was small and quiet, the kind of person most beings overlooked. Her job was simple: maintain the old archives and fetch documents when the counselors needed them. She had never spoken in a council meeting, and she never expected to. But something bothered her. While the counselors argued, she opened her tablet and began searching through ancient records. She did not know what she was looking for. She only knew that the galaxy was vast, and the council had existed for thousands of cycles. Surely, somewhere in all that history, there was something useful. She found mostly useless information. Old trade agreements. Maps of systems that no longer existed. Reports from survey teams that had explored forgotten corners of space. Then she found something strange. It was a file marked as low priority, buried under layers of forgotten data. The timestamp showed it was created over 200 cycles ago. The file contained a brief report from a survey team that had visited a small blue planet in an uncharted sector. The planet was called Earth. The species living there called themselves humans. Yuna read the report with growing curiosity. The survey team had observed the humans for several rotations. They found a species that had not yet developed space travel. They fought wars among themselves with primitive weapons. They had not even discovered faster-than-light communication. The survey team's conclusion was simple. Species shows no potential for galactic significance. Recommend no further contact. Classification: primitive. Threat level: none. That was it. 200 cycles ago, someone had looked at these humans, decided they were not worth the trouble, and never went back. Yuna almost closed the file. What use was a primitive species from a forgotten planet? They could not help against the Keth's dominion. They probably did not even exist anymore. But something made her hesitate. She looked at the star charts attached to the file. The system where Earth was located sat in a region of space that the Council had marked as empty. No one had visited that area in over 100 cycles. No one knew what was there now. She thought about mentioning it to the counselors. Then she looked at the chaos in the chamber and decided against it. They had bigger problems. A species that was primitive 200 cycles ago could not possibly matter now. She closed the file and put it out of her mind, in the center of the chamber. High Counselor Bryn finally restored order. He stood at his podium, looking older than ever, and addressed the assembly. "We have debated long enough," he said. "The truth is clear. We cannot defeat the Keith Dominion in battle. Our only hope is negotiation. We will send diplomats to meet their fleet. We will offer them whatever they want. Territory, resources, tribute, whatever it takes to preserve our people." Commander Orith slammed his fist against his seat. "You speak of surrender?" "I speak of survival," Bren replied calmly. "Pride means nothing if we are all dead." The vote was held. It was not close. 31 species voted for negotiation. 16 voted to fight. The motion passed. The Galactic Council, the greatest alliance in known space, chosen to kneel before the Keth Dominion. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Una stayed behind. She sat alone in the empty room, staring at her tablet. Something still bothered her. She opened the old file again and looked at the star charts. The region where Earth was located bordered the neutral corridor. That was the same path the Keth Armada was using to approach Council space. If any humans had survived, if they had somehow developed space travel in the past 200 cycles, they would be directly in the path of the enemy fleet. Una shook her head. It was a foolish thought. The survey team had been very clear. The humans were primitive. They posed no threat to anyone. They were probably still fighting among themselves with simple weapons. Completely unaware that a vast galaxy existed beyond their small world, she closed the file for the second time and left the chamber, far away. In a region of space that appeared empty on every council map, something stirred. Massive shapes moved through the darkness between stars. They made no sound. They sent no signals. They had been watching and waiting for a very long time, and now, at last, it was time to move. Thousands of engines powered up in perfect unison. Navigation systems locked onto coordinates that led toward the neutral corridor. Crews that had trained for generations prepared for a moment they had always known would come. The humans had not forgotten the galaxy that had forgotten them, and they were coming. Captain Taiho stood on the bridge of the frigate Wanderer and stared at his display screen. Something was wrong with it. The sensors kept picking up signals from a region of space that was supposed to be empty. Minji, he said to his navigation officer, check the sensor array. I think we have a malfunction. Minji, a sharp-eyed woman with short dark hair, ran her diagnostic. After a moment, she looked up with a puzzled expression. The sensors are working fine, Captain. The signals are real. That is impossible, Taiho replied. There's nothing in that sector. The maps show empty space for thousands of light years. The maps might be wrong, said Ginho, the weapons chief. He was a large man with a calm voice, the kind of person who never panicked even in the worst situations. Or something moved into that sector after the maps were made. Taiho considered this. The Wanderer was stationed at the farthest observation post in Council territory. Their job was to watch the border and report enemy movements. They were the first line of defense, though everyone knew they could not actually defend anything. If the Keth Dominion came this way, the Wanderer and its small crew would be destroyed in seconds. Can you identify the signals? Taiho asked. Minji shook her head. They do not match any known pattern. The encryption is completely foreign. I have never seen anything like it. Taiho walked closer to the display and studied the signals. They pulsed in regular intervals, appearing and disappearing across a wide area of space. At first, they seemed random. But as he watched, he began to notice something. The signals were organized. They moved in formations. They responded to each other in precise patterns. This is not random noise, Taiho said slowly. This is communication. Military communication. Ginho joined him at the display. You think someone is out there? A fleet? I think many someones are out there, Taiho replied, and they are very well organized. He opened a channel to Council Defense Command. The face of Commander Orith appeared on screen. The commander looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded his eyes, and his voice was heavy with stress. Captain Taiho, report. Commander, we are detecting anomalous signals from Sector 7 to 7. The patterns suggest organized fleet movements, Orith frowned. Sector 727 is empty space. Your sensors must be malfunctioning. We checked, sir. The sensors are working correctly, and it must be interference from the Keth Armada. They entered the neutral corridor 6 hours ago. They have already destroyed 2 border stations. Whatever you are seeing, it is not important. Keep watching the main approach routes. The screen went dark. Taiho stood in silence for a long moment. He does not believe us, Mingi said. He does not want to believe us, Taiho corrected. He has enough problems. Ghost signals from empty space are not his priority. Taiho could not ignore what he was seeing. The signals continued to multiply. Whatever was out there, it was getting closer. And it was big. Very big. Across council space, panic was spreading. News of the Keth advance reached every world. Civilians fled their homes and crowded onto transport ships. Space stations became choked with refugees. The council's surrender delegation had departed, but no one believed the Keth would accept any terms. In the great chamber on Station Aurelia, Una worked alone. The counselors had all retreated to their private quarters, leaving the archives unattended. She should have gone home too, but the strange file about the humans kept calling to her. She had spent hours researching everything she could find. The results were disappointing. After that single survey 200 cycles ago, no one had ever visited Earth again. No trade ships. No exploration teams. No contact of any kind. The humans were simply forgotten. Una pulled up the star charts again. The region where Earth was located sat directly in the path of the signals that Captain Taiho had reported. She had intercepted his communication with Commander Orith. It was part of her job to monitor all incoming reports. Could there be a connection? Could those ghost signals be coming from the humans? She laughed at herself. The idea was ridiculous. Even if the humans had developed space travel in the past 200 cycles, could not possibly have a fleet large enough to challenge the Keth Dominion. Building such a force would take thousands of cycles. No species had ever advanced that quickly. Then again, no one had ever checked. On the bridge of the Wanderer, Taiho suddenly stood up straight. His display had changed. The ghost signals were no longer scattered. They had consolidated into a single massive formation. Captain Mingy said, her voice trembling, "I am detecting warp signatures. Thousands of them." Taiho felt his heart stop. "Where?" "They are emerging from Sector 7 to 7, right at the edge of the neutral corridor." The display lit up with contacts. 100. 500. 1,000. The number kept climbing. 2,000. 5,000. 8,000. Vessels appeared from empty space in perfect formation. They moved as one, like a single living creature. Their hulls were dark and angular, built for war. Their weapon systems glowed with barely contained energy. "What is that?" Ginho whispered. Before anyone could answer, a transmission came through. It was broadcast on all frequencies, in a language so old that the computer needed several seconds to translate it. "This is the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We have returned. Stand clear." Taiho stared at the message. Terran. The word triggered something in his memory. He had read it somewhere before, in some ancient file that had crossed his desk years ago. Terran meant human. "Cannot be," Minji breathed. "The humans are supposed to be primitive. They are supposed to be nothing." The fleet moved past them without stopping. 8,000 ships, each one bristling with weapons that looked nothing like Council technology. They were heading straight for the Keth Armada. Taiho opened a channel to command. This time, Commander Orith answered immediately. His face was pale with shock. "Captain, are you seeing this?" "Yes, Commander. The ghost signals were real, and they are not friendly to the Keth." On the display, the human fleet formed into attack formation. They did not slow down. They did not attempt communication with the Keth. They simply advanced, silent and unstoppable. Like a storm rolling across the void, the Keth Dominion had come to conquer the galaxy. They had no idea what was waiting for them. Fleet Admiral Sunwoo stood on the command deck of the Unbroken and watched the enemy approach. His face showed no emotion. His hands were steady. He had waited his entire life for this moment, and he would not waste it on fear or excitement. Beside him, Vice Admiral Hannah studied the tactical display. She was younger than Sunwoo, but her eyes held the same cold determination. "The Keth Armada numbers 3,200 vessels," she reported. "They have formed a standard attack formation. Their weapons are charging. Let them fire first," Sunwoo said calmly. "I want everyone to see who started this." Lieutenant Doyan, the tactical officer, looked up from his station. "Sir, the Keth are hailing us. They demand we identify ourselves and surrender immediately." Sunwoo allowed himself a small smile. They demand our surrender? How generous of them. He turned to face the main view screen. Open a channel. Let me speak to their commander. The screen flickered, and the face of a Keth warlord appeared. His skin was dark red, covered in ritual scars. His yellow eyes burned with arrogance. Unknown fleet, he growled. You have entered Keth territory. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your complete destruction. Sun Wu studied the warlord for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but clear. I am Fleet Admiral Sun Wu of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We are not in Keth territory. You are in ours. Turn your ships around and return home. This is your only warning. The warlord laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. You threaten us? You are 8,000 ships against 3,000. The advantage is yours in numbers, but the Keth have never been defeated in battle. Your primitive vessels will burn like all the others. Then let us find out, Sun Wu replied. He cut the channel and turned to his crew. All ships, battle stations, weapons free on my command. Across the human fleet, 8,000 crews prepared for combat. These were not soldiers who had known peace. They were born in warships, raised in training halls, and taught from childhood that the galaxy was dangerous and that only the strong survived. Every single one of them knew what was at stake. The Keth fired first. Thousands of plasma bolts streaked across the void, lighting up the darkness like a deadly storm. They struck the forward shields of the human fleet and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Vice. Admiral Hanna checked the damage reports. Shields holding at 94%. Their weapons are weaker than projected. Of course they are, Sun Wu said. They have been fighting the same enemies for centuries. They never needed to improve. He raised his hand. All ships return fire. What happened next would be remembered for 1,000 generations. The human fleet unleashed weapons that the Keth had never seen. Directed plasma lances cut through enemy shields like they were made of paper. The beams were so precise that they could target specific systems on enemy ships. Engines, weapons, life support. One by one, Keth vessels went dark. But the lances were only the beginning. Swarm drones launched from every human carrier. Millions of tiny machines flooded the battlefield, overwhelming Keth point defenses. They attached themselves to enemy hulls and began cutting through armor. Within minutes, dozens of Keth ships were venting atmosphere. The Keth tried to regroup. Their commanders screamed orders, attempting to form defensive formations. But the humans had planned for this. Gravity well generators activated, creating invisible traps that caught Keth vessels and held them in place. The trapped ships could not move, could not escape. They could only wait for death. On the bridge of the Wanderer, Captain Taiho watched the battle unfold on his display. His crew stood in stunned silence. They had seen warfare before. They had witnessed battles between council fleets and pirate raiders. But they had never seen anything like this. This is not a battle, Minji whispered. This is a massacre. She was right. The Keth Armada, the most feared military force in the galaxy, was being systematically destroyed. Their ships exploded by the dozens. Their formations collapsed. Their communications filled with screams, desperate pleas for help that would never come. The human fleet moved through them like a blade through water. They did not stop. They did not slow down. They did not show mercy in the great chamber on Station Aurelia. The surviving counselors watched the battle through long-range sensors. High Counselor Bren sat in his chair, unable to speak. Ambassador Vel had collapsed to his knees, tears streaming down his blue face. Yuna stood at the back of the room, her tablet forgotten in her hands. She watched ship after ship die. Watched the mighty Keth Dominion crumble before a species that the Council had dismissed as primitive 200 cycles ago. How? She heard someone whisper. How is this possible? No one had an answer. 6 hours after the first shot was fired, it was over. The Keth Armada had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Of the 3,200 vessels that had entered the battle, exactly 47 survived. These were the fastest ships, the ones that had fled at the first sign of disaster. Admiral Sunwoo surveyed the destruction with satisfaction. His fleet had lost 0 ships. 17 vessels reported minor damage. That was all. "Open a channel to the surviving Keth vessels," he ordered. The frightened face of a Keth officer appeared on screen. He was young, barely more than a cadet. All his superior officers were dead. "This is Admiral Sunwoo. You will return to your territory immediately. You will tell your leaders what happened here. You will tell them that the Terran Expeditionary Fleet protects these systems now. Any future aggression will be met with total annihilation." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was ice. "And you will tell them this. Humanity remembers. We remember being called primitive. We remember being forgotten. And we do not forgive." The channel closed. The surviving Keth ships turned and fled, jumping to warp as fast as their damaged engines could carry them. Vice Admiral Hannah approached Sunwoo's side. "The Council will want answers. They will want to know who we are and where we came from." "Let them wonder," Sunwoo replied. "For now, we have done what we came to do. The Keth will not threaten this region again." He turned to face his crew. "All ships form up. We will remain in this sector until we are certain the enemy will not return." Across the battlefield, debris floated in silence. The mighty Keth Armada had become a graveyard. And somewhere in the void, Captain Taiho finally found his voice. "Minji," he said quietly, "send a message to command. Tell them the battle is over. Tell them the humans won." He paused, still trying to believe what he had witnessed. "Tell them everything has changed." The Galactic Council had not stopped talking for 3 days. Representatives argued, shouted, and accused each other of incompetence. Fear had turned to confusion, and confusion had turned to anger. Everyone wanted answers that no one could provide. High Counselor Bren sat in his chair and let the chaos wash over him. He was too tired to stop it. In all his years of leadership, he had never felt so small or so helpless. A species that the Council had dismissed as primitive had just destroyed the most powerful armada in the galaxy. They had done it in 6 hours. They had lost nothing. How? The question haunted every counselor. How had the humans advanced so far, so fast? Where had they been hiding? Why had no one detected their fleet before now? Yuna worked through the night, searching every archive for information. She found almost nothing. The original survey report was 200 cycles old. After that, the humans simply vanished from Council records. No contact. No observation. No interest. "We ignored them," she realized. "We decided they were not important, and we forgot they existed." She brought her findings to High Counselor Bren personally. He read the old survey report with growing horror. The words mocked him from the screen. "Species shows no potential for galactic significance. Recommend no further contact. Classification: primitive. Threat level: none." "We were wrong," Bren said quietly. "We were terribly, terribly wrong." A message arrived from the human fleet. Admiral Sunwoo had agreed to a diplomatic meeting, but on his terms. The Council delegation would come to his flagship. He would not come to them, some counselors protested. It was a matter of pride, they said. The Council should not bow to these newcomers. But Bren silenced them with a single look. Pride had nearly gotten them all killed. Pride could wait. The delegation was small. High Counselor Bren, Ambassador Vel, Commander Orith, and Yuna as the official recorder. They boarded a transport and flew toward the human flagship. The Unbroken was massive. It dwarfed every council vessel Yuna had ever seen. Its dark hull stretched 4 kilometers, covered in weapon systems and sensor arrays. As their transport approached, she counted dozens of gun turrets tracking their movement. "They could destroy us with a single shot," Orith muttered, "and there's nothing we could do to stop them." The transport docked, and the delegation stepped into the human ship. Soldiers in black armor lined the corridors, standing perfectly still like statues. They did not speak. They did not move. They simply watched with eyes that showed no emotion. Yuna tried not to stare. These were humans. According to the old records, they were supposed to be weak and primitive. But the soldiers before her looked like weapons given flesh. Every movement was precise. Every stance was ready for combat. A woman in a gray uniform met them at the end of the corridor. She had a calm face and intelligent eyes. "I am Commander Yunji, diplomatic liaison for the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Admiral Sun Wu is waiting for you. Please follow me." They walked through the ship in silence. Yuna noticed details that surprised her. The corridors were clean and efficient, but they were not cold. There were signs of life everywhere. A child's drawing pinned to a wall. The smell of cooking food from a distant kitchen. The sound of voices laughing behind closed doors. This was not just a warship. It was a home. They reached the command center, a vast room filled with screens and control stations. Admiral Sun Wu stood at the center, his hands clasped behind his back. He was older than Yuna expected, with gray hair and deep lines on his face. But his eyes were sharp and clear. Beside him stood Vice Admiral Hannah and Dr. Jiho, the Chief Science Officer. They watched the council delegation with expressions of polite curiosity. "High Counselor." Bren stepped forward and bowed slightly. It was a gesture of respect, something he had not given to another species in decades. "Admiral Sun Wu, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I thank you for your assistance against the Keth Dominion. You have saved countless lives." Sun Wu nodded. "We did not do it for the Council. We did it because the Keth were in our path, and we do not tolerate threats." The words were cold, but Bren did not flinch. "I understand. Regardless of your reasons, we are grateful." He paused, gathering his courage. "Admiral, I must ask the question that everyone in the galaxy is asking. How? 200 cycles ago, your species had not even discovered space travel. How did you build a fleet capable of destroying the Keth Armada?" Sun Wu was silent for a long moment. Then he turned to face the view screen, which showed a star map of the galaxy. 200 cycles ago, a ship came to our world. We did not know what it was. We could not communicate with it. We watched it observe us for several rotations, and then it left. We never saw it again." He pointed to a small blue dot on the map. "That was Earth, our home. After your survey team departed, we searched the skies every night, hoping to see more visitors. We wanted to meet other beings. We wanted to learn about the universe." His voice hardened. "But no one came. Years passed, decades. We realized that whoever had visited us had decided we were not worth the trouble. We were alone." Commander Yunji stepped forward. "That was when our ancestors made a decision. If the galaxy did not want us, we would make the galaxy respect us. We poured every resource into space technology. We built our first warp drive within 40 cycles. We built our first warship within 60. By the time 100 cycles had passed, we had a fleet larger than most species build in 1,000. Dr. Jiho added quietly, "We also watched. We monitored your communications. We studied your technology. We learned everything we could about every species in the galaxy. We mapped your territories, your alliances, your weaknesses. We knew about the Keth Dominion long before they became a threat to you." Bren felt a chill run through his body. "You were watching us the entire time?" "We were preparing," Sun Wu corrected. "The galaxy is dangerous. You taught us that lesson when you looked at our world and decided we were not worthy of your attention. We simply made sure that no one would ever make that mistake again." Yuna could not stay silent any longer. "Admiral, why did you intervene? You said you did not do it for the Council, but you could have let the Keth destroy us. You could have waited until both sides were weakened and then conquered whatever remained." Sun Wu turned to look at her. For the first time, something like warmth flickered in his eyes. "You are the one who found the old file, the archivist." Yuna blinked in surprise. "How did you know?" "We intercept all Council communications," Sun Wu replied. "We know everything that happens in your territory." He paused, then answered her question. "We intervened because the Keith would have killed billions of innocent beings. We may not trust the Council, but we do not believe in genocide. The strong should protect the weak. That is what separates civilization from barbarism." He turned back to face Bryn. "Make no mistake, Counselor. We are not your friends. We are not your allies. We protected you this time because it served our interests. Do not assume we will do so again. Bren nodded slowly. I understand. Then what do you want from us? Nothing, Sunwoo replied. We want to be left alone. We will continue our expansion into uncharted space. We will not interfere with Council affairs, and we expect the Council not to interfere with ours. If you honor this agreement, there will be no conflict between us. It was not a request. It was an ultimatum. Bren had no choice but to accept. Agreed, he said quietly. The Galactic Council will not interfere with the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. Sunwoo extended his hand. After a moment of hesitation, Bren took it. The handshake lasted only a second. But in that moment, the entire balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. The Council delegation returned to Station Aurelia with the agreement signed. The Galactic Council would not interfere with human expansion. The humans would not interfere with Council affairs. It was a simple arrangement built on mutual distrust rather than friendship. The counselors accepted it without argument. They had no leverage. They had no power. The humans could have demanded anything, and they would have been forced to agree. The fact that Sunwoo asked for nothing but distance was seen as either mercy or warning. No one was sure which. In the days that followed, the galaxy tried to return to normal. Refugees went back to their homes. Trade routes reopened. The Keth Dominion retreated to their territory and fell into civil war as their leaders blamed each other for the disaster. They would not threaten anyone for a long time, but nothing was truly the same. Every species now knew that somewhere in the darkness between stars, 8,000 human warships waited in silence. They had appeared from nowhere and destroyed an armada in 6 hours. They could do the same to anyone. Captain Taiho could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed. The battle replayed in his mind every night. He saw the Keth ships exploding, the human fleet moving with perfect coordination, cold efficiency of total annihilation. He requested permission to visit the human flagship before they departed. He did not expect it to be granted. But to his surprise, Admiral Sunwoo approved the request personally. Taiho took a shuttle to the Unbroken alone. Minji and Ginho had offered to accompany him, but he felt this was something he needed to do himself. He did not know what he was looking for. He only knew that he needed to understand. A young officer met him at the docking bay. She had a kind face and tired eyes, the look of someone who carried heavy burdens without complaint. Captain Taiho, I am Lieutenant Nari. Admiral Sunwoo asked me to show you around. Thank you, Taiho said. I appreciate the Admiral's generosity. Nari smiled slightly. He was curious about you. You were the first Council officer to take our signals seriously. He respects that. She led him through the corridors of the Unbroken. Taiho had expected a military vessel, cold and sterile. What he found was something very different. There were families everywhere. Children ran through the hallways, laughing and playing. Parents watched them with tired but loving eyes. In one section, Taiho saw a school where young humans sat at desks, listening to a teacher explain mathematics. In another, he found a garden where vegetables grew under artificial lights. This is not just a warship, Taiho said quietly. This is a city. This is our home, Nari replied. The Unbroken carries 40,000 people. We have everything here. Schools, hospitals, farms, factories. We are completely self-sufficient. But why live on ships? Taiho asked. Your fleet is powerful enough to claim any world you want. Why not settle on a planet? Nari stopped walking. Her expression changed, becoming sad in a way that made Taiho regret his question. Captain, there is something you do not know. Something we did not tell the Council. She paused as if deciding how much to reveal. 80 cycles ago, a massive asteroid struck Earth. It was too large to stop, too fast to avoid. Our planet was destroyed. Taiho stared at her. Destroyed? Your homeworld is gone? Gone, Nari confirmed. Everything we were, everything we built. Our cities, our monuments, our history. All of it was reduced to dust in a single moment. 8 million humans survived by being aboard ships that were away from the planet when it happened. We are all that remains of our species. The weight of her words crushed Taiho's chest. He looked around at the families walking past, the children playing, the gardens growing. These were not warriors conquering the galaxy. These were refugees, survivors of an apocalypse, wandering the stars because they had nowhere else to go. "I am so sorry," he whispered. "I had no idea." Nari shook her head. "Do not be sorry. Our tragedy made us who we are. We learned that the universe is cruel, that safety is an illusion, that the only thing we can truly rely on is each other." She gestured at the ship around them. "This fleet is our home now. Every ship carries part of our civilization. As long as we survive, humanity survives." They continued the tour in silence. Taiho saw workshops where engineers built new technology. He saw training halls where young soldiers practiced combat. He saw memorial walls covered with names, the millions who had died when Earth was destroyed. At last, they reached an observation deck. Through the transparent walls, Taiho could see the stars stretching endlessly into the void. Nari stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the distant points of light. "Can I ask you something?" Taiho said. "Of course. Your people have suffered so much. You lost your world. You were forgotten by the galaxy. You have every reason to hate other species, to conquer and dominate. But instead you saved us from the Keth. Why?" Nari was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "Because someone should have done the same for us." Taiho did not understand at first. Then, slowly, the meaning became clear. The humans had been alone when their world died. No one came to help them. No one offered shelter or assistance. They survived by their own strength. But the loneliness of that survival had marked them forever. They saved the Council, not out of kindness, not out of strategy, but because they knew what it felt like to face annihilation alone. They refused to let others suffer the same fate. "You are better than us," Taiho said quietly. "The Council ignored your people for 200 cycles. We decided you were not worth our attention. And when you finally appeared, you saved us anyway." Nari shook her head. "We are not better. We are just different. We learned lessons that your people never had to learn. We hope you never will." She turned to face him. "But remember this, Captain. Humanity will never again be helpless. We will never again be dismissed as primitive or insignificant. We will wander the stars forever if we must, but we will do so on our own terms." The tour ended, and Taiho returned to the Wanderer. He sat alone on his bridge for hours, staring at nothing. When Minji asked him what he had learned, he could not find the words. How could he explain? How could he describe a species that had lost everything and still found the strength to protect strangers? The human fleet departed the next day. 8,000 ships activated their warp drives in perfect unison and vanished into the unknown regions of space. They left no farewell message, no promise to return. They simply disappeared. As quietly as they had arrived, High Counselor Bren watched them go from the observation tower on Station Aurelia. Una stood beside him, her tablet clutched to her chest. "What happens now?" she asked. Bren shook his head slowly. "I do not know. The galaxy is different now. The old rules no longer apply. We must adapt or be left behind." He turned away from the window and walked toward the council chamber. There was work to be done, alliances to rebuild, a future to plan. But he would never forget what he had learned. For 200 cycles, the Galactic Council had believed they were the masters of the galaxy. They had been wrong, somewhere. In the darkness between stars, humanity wandered on. 8 million souls carrying the legacy of a dead world, protecting their civilization with 8,000 ships of war. They asked for nothing but to be left alone. They threatened no one who did not threaten them first. But they were watching. They were always watching. And if the galaxy ever needed them again, they would return. Not as saviors, not as conquerors, but as what they had always been, survivors.